Okay, so what happened here?
Johnson responded to protesters who are suing the city of Chicago because officials deny their request to hold a protest march during the Democratic National Convention this August.
My vision for the DNC ultimately is to have a safe, energetic, vibrant convention. And I'm confident that we will be able to deliver that. You know, as far as applications are concerned, there are parameters in which we are working with that individuals who wish to demonstrate, we're asking those individuals work within those parameters.
The mayor went on to emphasize he supports organizations' First Amendment rights to protest. He pointed out his past as an organizer of demonstrations and says he wants to make sure protests are held safely and securely while the DNC is underway. And he says he wants people who have no interest in the convention can go on about their lives.
I love every bit to laugh at this, but I kind of can't, seeing how it is that, well, I kind of called it. Well, not exactly the fact that the Democratic Party wants to switch the DNC this year to a semi-online event, but I kind of called the nonsense, which, by the way, would in fact be occurring at this Democratic National Convention, given everything that's going on this year. You know, given the fact that you've got all these Free Palestine protests, given the fact that you've got not only that, but you've got all these issues that the Democratic Party has obviously not answered on because their voters obviously don't ask for any actual details on how they're going to get anything done. Of course, they just simply just go along with the whole emotional thing, which is basically just music to their ears. And then, of course, they get upset when the thing does not get passed. You know, stuff like free crap and the ability to kill a child, stuff like that there, okay? That right there is, for the most part, what it is that this entire situation is coming down to, once again. And, of course, the city of Chicago has basically told these people, you're not allowed to do your protests outside the DNC. So what exactly happened? Well, right now at this moment in time, the ACLU, they are currently suing the city of Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson in particular, because they have been informed that they cannot protest outside the United Center, which is where the DNC is going to be held this year in Chicago. Now, I know what some people are thinking. You've talked about the 1968 Democratic National Convention. Of course, you're seeing some of this in the B-roll footage. I wasn't able to get any additional footage, but of course, I'll leave some links in the description box for you guys for the purpose of this video here, so that way you guys can see exactly how crazy it was. Fist fights on the floor, fist fights outside, city basically burning, all that type of good stuff. The type of thing that you normally would get with a bunch of rabid leftists, especially anti-war leftists. Which is kind of odd because it looks like that right there is actually what we're facing today, the spirit of that. But that right there is a different topic for another day. The thing is this right here. The ACLU, they're pissed. They want to be able to protest right outside the DNC itself. But before we get to that, let's go back in time just a few months to kind of see exactly when this little ordeal started to break out.
Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
And as CBS 2 political reporter Chris Ty shows us, attention is now turning to how the city plans to handle thousands of expected protesters.
This is Union Park, just a few blocks from the United Center, home of this summer's DNC. And this is where protesters wanted to set up for that week in the summer. But the city rejected that proposal, instead telling them to set up here, the south end of Grant Park. In the end, a full 4 miles away from the convention site.
Who's really in charge of denying this to us? It's 3 agencies. It's the Secret Service, it's the Department of Homeland Security, and it's the FBI. And this is what they do.
The agency that denied their application, though, was the city's Department of Transportation, saying sufficient city resources are not available to mitigate the traffic disruption that would be caused at Union Park.
We're not asking, we're demanding what.
So basically, they were told to move to a separate park, to a separate location. They're claiming that obviously this has got to do with traffic, things of that nature there. And of course, you know, the Department of Transportation, they ultimately decide to be the ones to say, look, you know, we can't do this for this reason here. It seems to me like it's a myriad of reasons. And of course, I think the most logical one for these people to go with is to say, hey, look, traffic is obviously going to be a problem here. But the point is this right here. Things have obviously intensified in the last 3 months. And of course, this right here only seems to kind of push things a little bit further into the direction of, well, it looks like the Democratic Party just doesn't want to have these potential problems at their actual convention. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want them over there either. And of course, there's the article that was put out there by Axios that the Biden team is considering having this situation moved to a semi-online event, basically meaning we don't want people to see how chaotic our voters are. That right there is what the hell this is probably really and truly going on here, but probably not in the way that you think. It's probably more along the lines that it was actually a, like the straw that broke the camel's back, that sort of thing there. One of the things that will be brought up at the Democratic National Convention is the topic of Israel-Palestine. Are they going to actually put that up for a vote? Are they going to put that on a ballot? Back in 2020, for example, I want to say that the Bernie Sanders crowd of delegates, they wanted to see if they could get a referendum on free health care. The Biden team, the Democratic National Convention, for the most part, rejected that. They got pissed off. They walked out. Now, granted, 2020 was also, for the most part, a semi-online or very much online convention. They had a building. Biden, people would go in there and give speeches, this, that, and the other. But for the most part, it was held in separate rooms. And, of course, there was no actual crowd. Republican National Convention, they did it all at the White House. And, of course, we saw it happen there to go along with what happened at the Democratic National Convention. The point is this right here. These people are obviously upset that they're not able to go outside and actually protest outside the convention. And, of course, the Democratic Party, they're taking note of this. And, of course, like I said before, this little ordeal started with the Department of Transportation saying, hey, look, you can't have you out here due to traffic. But, of course, we all know that everything that's happened since has pushed the DNC in this direction. But let's watch the rest of this.
All power to the people. The group, known as the Coalition to March on the DNC, is made up of several groups with different focal points, from Palestinian rights to protecting the rights of working moms.
Please continue to disperse.
12 years ago, some of these same protesters were part of the NATO protests in Chicago. And while those did turn violent, even then, these protesters say the city was more accommodating on where they could protest.
The legal language on which these have been settled in court is protesting within sight and sound. And on the corner of Cermak and Michigan, we could see the hotel where they were meeting.
The Grant Park location would put them out of sight and sound of the convention and its attendees at the United Center. We asked the city if they're open to moving them closer, but didn't hear back. The ACLU of Illinois says groups should be within sight and sound of each other.
There is a crisis.
The groups part of this collective protest effort say they're appealing the decision and are confident that by this summer, they won't.
Now, of course, we will get to what's happening today, but I do want to say one more thing, especially given what you just saw there. Do you guys remember about 3 or 4 months ago, I did a video on ShotSpotter? I'll probably put it in the description box for you guys. But the thing is this right here. The ShotSpotter technology is designed to detect gunshots in certain areas. Well, actually, within the area itself. And it's mostly being used in poor neighborhoods. It's one of the ways that people can find out if there was a shooting or not. That right there being the authorities, the cops, police. Well, Mayor Brandon Johnson cut that funding, basically saying that we're going to cut ShotSpotter, which of course is just going to lead to more and more and more crimes that are not going to be solved, because obviously the ShotSpotter technology helps identify where gunshots came from. It also helps in identifying who the killer possibly was or who the shooter was. However, Mayor Brandon Johnson was going to leave the funding in place for this year through the DNC because obviously he wanted to make sure that Democratic politicians were in fact covered, protected, which I don't really see how the hell it would have covered them, but still at the same time, obviously it's not a good look for the Democratic Party to then say, hey, look, we want you to remove this technology, or mayor, we want you to remove it, but we want you to remove it after all the rich white folks leave. Just saying, it's not exactly a good look. So where are we at now? Now, guys, this right here is bits and pieces from 3 separate news reports, okay? The first one that I leaned in with was obviously the mayor's reaction to this. And, of course, now you've obviously got the short one, and then you've got a much, much more detailed one. But here's the thing about this particular story. When you actually look at the protesters themselves, the people who are actually upset, the people who are actually suing, it really and truly is and I mean this, it is the absolute epitome of identity politics. But let's roll the first segment.
9 organizations teamed up with the American Civil Liberties Union to file a lawsuit against the city of Chicago. They're all taking legal action because the city has denied the group's request to hold a march during the Democratic National Convention this August.
The city says it doesn't want chaos during the Democratic National Convention, but their actions like the actions of Richard J. Daley a generation ago. They're about preserving disorder.
They plan to march to protect abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, and bodily autonomy. The protesters were told they can hold demonstrations on Columbus Drive between Roosevelt and Jackson. The convention's happening at the United Center, about 3 miles away.
My man there in the glasses, those people there speaking, they are the more pro-abortion crowd. They are the people who are let's put it this way here, they're pushing for abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, and in most cases with these people, outright infanticide. By the way, I think that outright infanticide is the term that we should be using once we get late enough in an actual pregnancy. But then again, it's child murder regardless. I say that as a pro-lifer, and obviously not just the fact that I'm a pro-lifer, but I'm definitely going to be having a video out on the topic of abortion itself. The politics of it, I think, is a completely different matter, but we'll be discussing at a later date. The thing is this right here, though, and I need to go ahead and put this out there. These people that are going out here and they're protesting, upset the fact that they can't protest, this right here is the Democratic Party basically panicking and saying, we don't want you at our convention, meaning that what you people are protesting for, or the things that you're protesting on behalf for, are things that we're not going to go through with. Let's take a look at the first group. You just saw the pro-abortion crowd, okay? But we have not seen the other crowds, even though they have been out there and they've been protesting in Chicago pretty much ever since the start of the Israel-Gaza Hamas conflict, okay? One such group, of course, was the pro-Palestinian crowd, the free Palestinian crowd. These people right here are people that Biden needs. A lot of these people live in Chicago. They live in Michigan. Part of the reason why his polling is so daggone bad. I personally don't see these people going out and voting in massive droves. As a matter of fact, there's actually a movement to not vote for him and stay at home. I think that's obviously going to hurt him. Now, obviously, Chicago is not going to flip red, but then again, though, I've seen crazier things happen. It's not going to flip red. Just saying. The point is this right here. You can't have the free Palestine protesters out there. You can't have the pro-Israel protesters out there. You got to make a choice between the two, or you can't have either one of them because they're probably going to fight one another. Also, something else, too. I also remember when these protests first started, you also had the Black Israelite group, who, by the way, sided with the free Palestine crowd, and then they got to a massive fistfight. I'm just saying that is how crazy and how chaotic this entire situation is, and how crazy and chaotic it's going to get. I've also mentioned the alphabet community, the LGBTQ community, okay? Each letter, each orientation does not like one another. They never really and truly have. They all despise one another. This is, like I said, it's got to do with identity politics. They all have competing, and I mean competing interests, and they all end up fighting one another. The Democratic Party does not want this on display, but because Mayor Goofenstein, Brandon Johnson, who, by the way, is so weak and very, very incompetent, it's very, very possible that these protesters could, in fact, actually win the lawsuit. Meaning that the convention itself is already chaotic before it actually gets chaotic. But let's watch some more of this.
Who has filed a lawsuit on behalf of a group wanting to protest near the site of the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago.
As WGN's Christine Flores reports, they want to make sure the delegates can hear their complaints.
Good evening. This is the next step a number of groups along with the ACLU are taking after having their permit denied to protest during the DNC. They are asking to rally near areas such as the Convention Center and here along Michigan Avenue.
It's absurd that we even have to file a federal lawsuit in order to assemble here while the Democratic Convention's happening.
The ACLU is representing 9 groups who are calling themselves bodies outside of unjust laws and who have filed a federal lawsuit asking a judge to grant them the ability to protest closer to DNC areas such as the United Center, McCormick Place, and Michigan Avenue, where most delegates usually stay.
The reasoning has been very vague. So the city has cited not having enough resources during the convention to ameliorate any traffic disruptions, and they've talked about not having sufficient law enforcement. This is one of the reasons that it's clear that the permit denial is so clearly unconstitutional.
We don't have enough. Oh, wait. It's one more group. A group that I've been covering for the better part of a year now, the migrants. That's right. The city of Chicago is putting a lot of money into these migrants, as well as the federal government's becoming pretty daggone pricey. It's about to become pricier. What happens if the migrants get out there and they protest? By the way, I forgot that right now there's a strife between the black community in these areas, the black communities and the migrants that are there. By the way, a lot of these people live near the United Center. I mean, they put the United Center, obviously, because it's the Chicago Bulls Stadium and also the Chicago Blackhawks, or it was, I mean, I haven't really kept up with basketball in recent years. But the point is this right here. They put that in that area for the sole purpose that they could be closer to the people who actually go see the games. And now you've got all these migrants living out there, and you've got all these not only migrants, but you've also got a lot of black people too. This entire situation is going to be chaotic, like I said that it would. And not to mention the city of Chicago is out of money because they're a sanctuary city and they just took everybody in. But let's continue.
Hold them, they are restricted to Columbus Drive from Roosevelt to Jackson, more than 3 miles from the United Center. The coalition notes similar backlash protesters received back in 1996, the last time the DNC was in Chicago. Back then, litigation moved the security footprint within sight and sound of delegates.
We've been down this road again, and one would hope that we would learn the lessons from 96 and not have to have this kind of litigation.
The complaint argues the Chicago Permit Ordinance and the recently passed city ordinance for security zones are unconstitutional.
The most important thing is that there is some way for protesters to reach those Democratic delegates.
Organizers are pushing to be closer to Democratic delegates who they say have done little to help their causes.
To force the Democrats to live up to their verbal promises rather than cynically using our issues for electoral fodder. And like with so many previous promises, ignoring them after the election.
The DNC is scheduled to take place here in the city between August 19th through the 22nd. Now, we reached out to the city on this matter, and they say they do not...
1996, that convention was almost like an exorcism for the Democratic Party because obviously they had the stink of 1968. Clinton was the incumbent president at the time, and he was obviously a little bit more popular. Biden is not popular at all. This right as a president right now has had approval ratings as low as 33%, and I have a feeling it's probably going to get a little bit lower before the end of the year because everything this administration touches turns to what? Crap, right? The fact of the matter is that the city of Chicago, they kind of did this to themselves, defund the police, not having a clean environment, not being able to be up on things, and of course, not only not to be up on things, but also to go on top of this, it's not efficient. It hasn't been efficient for many, many years. The point is this right here. These people did this crap to themselves, and they're looking for every single out that they can to get away from having these protesters there. Now, me personally, I'm not in favor of violence or outright violence. However, I got to say this right now. I've been saying this the entire time. I'm not the only one who's been saying this. Many other commentators, many other small channels have been saying this too, that the 1968 Democratic National Convention is going to look, how do I say this, 1968 compared to this one right here coming up in 2024, if it goes the way it's supposed to go, it's probably going to be minuscule. And the reason why I say that is because you have more groups protesting. Remember, 1968, the vast majority of the protesters were protesting the Vietnam War. The problem is that during the Vietnam War protests, you then see civil rights groups and people who are pro-civil rights, of course, and you also see the Black Panthers and all the other left-wing groups showed up. They infiltrated, and next thing you know, it turned to a great big giant brawl. It turned into riots, and it lasted for the better part of 3 days. And you also had people, mostly liberals with moderates, actually having fistfights on the Democratic National Convention floor. This time around, you've got the Free Palestine crowd, you've got the Black Israelites showing up, you've got the extreme abortion crowd, you've got the LGBTQ community crowd, you've got the Black civil rights crowd, you've got the blacks who are trying to flip Republican, who are against the Hispanics, and the Hispanics. You've got a much, much larger array of characters. It's going to be outright chaos is what I'm trying to say. And, of course, the city of Chicago is about to get sued, and, of course, that right there could make the city of Chicago broke for a very, very long time, which absolutely sucks because there's probably going to be a heavy amount of money that's going to be paid out should these people actually win. But then again, it could also be one of those cases where they're just suing to get the law changed. Who the hell knows? Either way, though, the city of Chicago kind of did it themselves as well as the Democratic Party. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. This is the only video I have planned going out to go along with the second video that's going out at noon. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. There's going to be 2 videos released this weekend. The one on the follow-up to the video today has already been done. It's already posted for tomorrow. And, of course, there's also one more video that's going to be coming out on Sunday on why it is that nobody wants to join the military. And I've also got a specialty one coming out that I may release on Sunday afternoon or on Monday, either one. It's kind of an extension of my TDS series. So make sure you guys stick around for all those. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.